Hey there, Kenneth French of Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. We're very, very happy you stopped by. Either you're going to watch this or listen to this because you want to take your business to the next level. You're probably an entrepreneur who's either just starting out or you've been around for quite a while and you want to take your business to the next level. You're probably a real estate investor, maybe even a real estate agent, maybe a professional or of some sort, professional advisor of some sort. And well, you are stopping by because you need some valuable advice from one of the top industry leaders there is. Anyway, thank you very much. Once again, Kenneth French, Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. Really glad you stopped by. Do you want to hear about the guy who was one of the guys behind Ashley Madison? Well, you're going to be having some fun here. Tino Dietrich, who was one of the guys behind Ashley Madison and a number of websites. Actually, he even changed the energy drink market. So this is going to be a big hangout. What's going on, Tino?
Hello. Great to be
Oh,
here.
this is going to be a fun one. Let's talk. First of all, I always like to ask people to add value to listeners and viewers who are entrepreneurs all over the United States, some all over the world. Give us one tip that would add value to a listener or viewer, and then we'll go on.
I would say just do a quick scan on your relationships, starting with the one you have with yourself, and then take the next circle and the outer circle and the outer circle, and see if they are good, bad, or ugly, and see what you have to realign, because that is really what I do today, is help people to have better relationships.
Oh, look at you. Your net, you know what they say, your network is your net worth, et cetera. And you're
Yeah.
right. It's all about relationships. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? You have a very varied background, and it's going to be fun to have this chat with you. Go ahead.
How much time do we have? Trying to scan through it, so if I skip through certain things, apologies. So long story short, I'm like what you call like an entrepreneur by heart. It's been in my DNA. Both parents entrepreneurs. Grew up with my mom, who was that classic American, even though she was never worked in America, but in Germany. From 0 to 100, she started selling curtains on marketplaces when I was a little kid. And then she became one of the most influential people in the steel industry. So,
Oh, really?
that's the story. Yeah. So I saw that growing up, and I said, I want to be an entrepreneur too. And that's what I did. I became an entrepreneur. But before that, I obviously went through all these different phases and tiers, from college. I went to upstate New York, Syracuse University, got my degree there, UC at Syracuse. And, that's what I did. And then I started to work as, so many other people. And got a call from a friend of mine from school who said, hey, my godfather, he has this energy drink, and they need someone to help them with marketing. And, it's only in Austria and it's nowhere else, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, never heard about energy drinks, but at that time it was zero energy drinks. And long story short, what happened is that Red Bull was out there in Austria only, because it was not allowed to sell these drinks anywhere else for whatever reason. And through a loophole, we found a way through the UK. And then when you're in the UK, you can sell it in Europe. So that's what we did, and tacked along with Red Bull. Red Bull followed us on that, and the obviously Red Bull became a household name. Our name did not become a household name because the godfather of my friend, he didn't believe in the category. We were as successful. We were right there, got disruptor prize in the food and beverage industry. And, I was in my early 20s, and people were asking like, hey, tell us the secret of success. And I said, I don't know. And I really didn't know. I was just working, and we came up with a lot of crazy ideas. We started sponsoring snowboarding, and snowboarding at that time was unknown. I mean, all these things that we did crazy in those days. And Red Bull, they just took the bull by the horn, so to say, and there we are. But it was an amazing time, and for me to be so young and have that huge success with something was absolutely mind blowing. but I didn't really think about the success. I was just working, it was just fun for me. And we were making a ton of money. It was all great. I didn't realize how quickly you can burn out. And then bloops, I burned out. It was mid-20s. So took a step back, went back for my master's. Then I got a call from my mom because we had a incident in our house. And she said, you know what? You got to come back here and help me. So that's how I went into my family business, which was shipping and trading, as I mentioned before. And I did that for a while. I opened up the first Vietnamese trading house in the world. We initiated the United Nations Oil for Food program under Bill Clinton, was trading, rice trading. I merged with a shipping company, oversaw almost $1 billion worth of new builds in container ships. And, I was in my late 20s then. But that was never what I really wanted to be. I kind of had to do what I had to do. So I did it. And then I moved on and started to go into more like venture capital and M&A, which is what I wanted to do. But then the dot-com crash came, so I was up and down and up and down. Was successful, not so successful, successful, not so successful. So
Hmm.
fast forward, I got into the digital landscape in the early 2000s as an investor, and I was really intrigued by what happened. And as so often, same with the energy drink market. I look at things and I have that aha moment, or I don't have it. You have it or you don't. Can kind of it just happens to you. At least to me, this is how I take as an entrepreneur. And boom, there I had it again. I looked at all the assets we had, and I saw the potential in online dating. I said, you know what? I think that is absolutely that's going to be the future. And at that time, people were online dating, but they will never admit that they would,
Yeah.
be on. It was Match.com, people met on Match.com, and they were making up stories like, yeah, we met at a dinner's party at a friend of ours, blah, 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 because it
Hmm.
was really bad to, almost as I said earlier, like, well, we met in the brothel or something, like
Yeah, yeah.
do online dating. And I know that today you giggle at that. Online dating is part of our DNA. It's just how we connect and how we meet. And I know. Anyways, so we had all these brands, sugar daddy dating, cougar dating, dada dating, this and that dating. And I saw one brand which was infidelity dating, and I said, hey, you know what? That's going to be a great thing to do international because Match.com didn't succeed internationally. eHarmony did not succeed internationally. They had to buy players in other markets to adapt the algorithm according to the likes of the different countries, right? Because you wanted to find the match for your life, the love of your life. And, Americans date a little different than the Greeks do, than the Italians do, than the French do. So, you had to go out there and do what you had to do. And I thought was casual dating. That's not so much the case. And Tinder is right. It proves me right. And we didn't have that idea with Tinder, but we had purchased Hot or Not, which was like the blueprint of Facebook, if you remember, Hot or Not, swipe Hot or Not. And we should have had the idea for Tinder, but we didn't. So, and then, yeah, so that's how I got into the digital landscape. And I'm still today in that landscape, but I'm doing something different today than I did at.
Yeah, what, give us a little bit of information. By the way, that Ashley Madison story is unbelievable. But give us a little bit of a flavor of what you're doing now to update the listeners and viewers out there.
Sure, sure. So, what I do today is because of what happened to me about 5 years ago. 5 years ago, what happened to me almost to the day, actually. I, like so many people, got sick with COVID. And
Oh,
where a
got
lot of
that.
people, yeah, well, I mean, so many people had COVID, right? And some people I know have it had, they had it like 3 times, 4 times.
Hmm.
But with me, for I don't know why, it just stuck like a piece of chewing gum under your soul. It just wouldn't get let go. And 6 weeks in there, I felt like I really like every week was worse and worse. So I felt so bad that I called again the telemedicine doctor, and they told me, "Hey, you got to go to the urgent care center because we can't help you. You got to get some medication." So I left the house. I said to my wife, I'm going to go just get some medication. So I went there. They took my vitals, and then they said, "No, no, no, you have to go to the emergency room." I'm like, "Oh,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like, "Well, that's a schlep." So I, called my wife. I said, "Hey, I'm gonna be back, later, like, for dinner or something, because it's gonna be a couple of hours here. I have to go to the hospital." And so I arrived at the hospital, and I had to walk into the COVID, entrance. There were COVID people and regular people. And, right there, I collapsed, and, yeah, boom. And then I woke up, and I had, like, they gave me some medication, and I was a little, little knocked out. And they said, we got to take you to the ICU. Your vitals are not good. And I was like, ugh, okay. Um, so I fell asleep again. I woke up in the ICU, and these people in the hazmat suits and running around was like all
Oh my
beeping
gosh.
machines. And yeah. And I'm like, man, what's going on here? And I don't know how long I was away, but then the doctor came in, and he's like, hey, we have to put you on an ECMO. And I said, "Well, what? And he's like, well, it's a machine, that helps support your heart and your lungs and your blood flow and blah, blah, blah." And he's like, but you know what? The priest wants to talk to you first. So why don't you talk to the priest? And they handed me the phone because nobody came in there in person, right? COVID. So the priest is like, hey, you asked me all these questions. And I said, why is he asking me all these questions? And then he's like, hey, you want me to read you your last rites? And I did not, nobody has ever done that to me, obviously. And I didn't know what I was like, sure. I did not understand it at that time. Then he started talking, and then I realized like what he's saying, and I was like, why is he saying what he's saying? And so, amen. And I hung up, and I looked at the doctor, and I said, what's happening? And he said, well, you may want to call your wife or your family. And I said, why? And he's like, we don't know if you're going to make it. We don't know if you're going to wake up tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, that would I can't imagine. What does that have to do with what you're doing now? This is an interesting story, but all right.
Well, because, at that time, I called my wife. Obviously, I said, "I'm not gonna be home for dinner. In fact, I'm not gonna be home, at all if I believe what they're saying." And I mean, I'm saying this now the way I say it, but I was so knocked out. I could barely talk, and, I was breathing heavy, and the machine there and this, and, so I hung up. They put me on the ECMO, and, there I was. And then I started to go and say, wow, if this is it, how was that ride? From the energy drink to online dating to you name it, to shipbuilding and, whatnot. Um, and it sounds like, hey, you've had a great life, and trust me, I've been between heaven and hell, from an entrepreneurial point of view, between
Mhm,
success and failure. So many times, I always say the ferryman, writes me postcards.
mm,
But you know, I looked at things, and I started to realize that, a lot of things were not, what I thought they would. Like, because all of a sudden you question these things. You're like, what do I leave if I go? Right? Do I leave a house or do I leave a home? What will people remember me for? And I started to realize that that was not with what I had in mind when I started this journey called life. I mean, not when I was
mm,
3 years old, but once you start thinking, and you start putting things together, or you start a family, you have a vision. And that vision, that I had was not what I actually saw in my mirror. So I said, hey, I started to cry, and I was so devastated. And I said, that's just not right. This is not how this movie can end. And I started to pray, and I said, please allow me, to come back. And, fair enough. I got what most men don't get, which is a second chance to make that first impression. And I said,
and
well, if
that
I get
somehow
that,
translated I guess that somehow translated to the, I guess, consulting that you're doing now, is that what we're talking about?
well, it's coaching. It's coaching. I coach mostly men to really rebuild, their marriages, their relationships, relationship with themselves. Relationship with their families. That's really what I do, because that is so closely related to success in business. And when you look at the statistics and numbers, they're devastating. I mean, devastating, and people totally underestimate that. And if I say we're in an epidemic, a silent epidemic here, and men are so misled. We're
Mm,
playing a rigged game, that's never meant for man to win in the first place. We're kind of in a freaking. I just wrote my book. I'm going to publish that very soon, called False Kings, because I think we think we're successful and we think we're great, but we're not.
So then how would this help? How would your philosophy, your coaching, et cetera, maybe even training, how would that help, let's say the average, let's say the entrepreneur, average, it sounds like male. So let me set the
Yeah,
stage for our typical person, let's just say, I don't even know, listeners, let's just say they're, worth $2 million as a net
yeah,
worth. They're usually real estate investors. Some of them are just doing real estate. Some of them are doing also crypto. Some of them might be operating a company selling widgets. So, how
yeah.
would your philosophy, training, et cetera, help, I guess, a man in this case to, let's say, exponentially increase their net rate of return or make it so they live a fulfilled life? One of the two, as an example.
I think both. First,
Mm,
70% of divorces are triggered by women.
mm,
So you can, with women with college degrees, it's actually as high as 90%. So you do the math. I mean, then 50% of all marriages end in divorce, with entrepreneurs and business owners. That number is even higher.
mhm,
And we all know that many of these people who go through that, they end up not only in, I would say, crash and burn in terms of their family, their wife, their kids, and their legacy, but they also end up in financial distress because it's not most of the times it's not like, hey, let's part ways the friendly way.
mm,
I take nothing and you get it all. So it's most of the times the opposite. It ends up in in bad terms, and
mm,
every fourth kid in America grows up without a father at home. And the three that are left that grow up with the father is barely present. So you're kind of, raising kids as a bad example. So when you
mhm,
then ask kids and they say, well, my father is my father, he's a warning signal of what I don't want to be when I get old.
mhm,
So I don't know. Like, you can have it all. You can have the cars, the money, the 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, 1 million. It doesn't really matter if there's no one you can share it with. If that's really what you want, then why do you get married in the first place? Why do you have kids in the first place? I think you do that because you really want to build a family and you want to have a family and you want to be a good man and not just a provider. But people, men are like, we learn how to lead in business and how to be, emotional intelligent and da 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 da. And we do all that. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't have the money, right? You're successful there, but then you come home and you may in your company you have like 10 people or 50 people listening to you and doing what you're saying. And then at home, there are three people and nobody's listening to you, right? You're just unheard. You're not felt, you're not present. Even though you're
mm,
there, you feel like a stranger in your own home. So if you say, how does that help? So I'm telling you how it helps. If you go through divorce, you're probably drained, emotionally. There's nothing worse than to fight with your kids, to fight with your wife. It's just not good. If you really want to be good, you make sure that that's working, because that needs to be good. And then, you address the business. You don't do the opposite. You think you make the money and then everything is good because you're paying for vacations, you're buying the cars, the rings, the da da da. But you know what? You should ask them what they really want and not what you think they want.
mhm. This is funny. The irony is dripping here. The guy who's one of the guys behind Ashley Madison, the cheat on you site, if you will, um, is the one who's now kind of preaching. This is in tongue in cheek, by the way. Family values, et cetera. But I think I understand exactly where you're coming from, because without a good foundation, your house is just going to fall apart. And I think what you're saying is, if you're, building yourself first, and then, with your own relationship with yourself, and then you can better kind of build the rest of your, if you will, empire, because those around you are going to be stronger because you're building a strong foundation upon
Yeah.
yourself, really. Yeah.
Look, I mean, I'm. You said kind of is strange or strange coincidence that I do what I do, but it's based on data. I looked at data all my life, right? Only look at data. I if I people show me something, say, "Isn't this great?" I say, "I don't know. What does the data say?" Because at the end of the
Mhm.
day, you're doing whatever it is that you're doing, not for yourself. Otherwise, you have a one customer company. You're doing it because you have customers, right? And You can talk about infidelity all day long. That's, first of all, it's not the root cause. The infidelity is a symptom. You don't, if you're happily married and everything is great, you're not, unless you have a mental problem, which, that's a different discussion. But if everything is solid and everything is great, you weather a lot of storms, and the more solid that foundation is, you can have stress in your business, you can have stress in your life, you can lose a parent. I just lost my mom end of last
Yeah.
year.
All right.
You're going through all this stress, but if you have a good solid home, there's literally nothing that can come between you and them.
Man, I do believe that people do sacrifice their home life for business, and there is a way to do it where you do both. They can coexist together. Really built on the foundation. I've been married to my
They
wife.
have to.
I've been married to my wife since '93, and like without her, I'm sure I wouldn't have been able to have the little success that I've had. So I totally get where you're coming from. But let me play the devil's advocate. I'm in the mood to play devil's advocate, I guess. By
Go
the way,
for it.
yeah, okay. Once again, kind of French, hanging out with Tino Dietrich, and we're talking about, well, a lot more than what I purchased, if you will, coming into this. And by the way, he is not paid. I'm not paid. We're doing this to help you, the listener and viewer. Um, so some people say, well, I don't have the time to build my home life to make the foundation that I think
Mm.
that you're suggesting. So what do you say to that?
That to me is, it just, I think that's a story you're telling yourself, which is great. I love those. I call them crappy rules or cruels. You live by certain rules that people tell you, like happy wife, happy life, and all these bullshit rules that you grow up with, right? You got to do this to get that, and that's where a lot of people are wrong, where kindness and being nice is mistaken for weakness, right? These are all the things that we tell ourselves, and that's wrong. It really is how you set priorities. And if we all are honest, and that's what you have to be, and that's a process. You're not just like,
Hmm.
turning the switch and you're honest to yourself. It's a process. I mean, I got through that whole COVID experience to become honest with myself. I was living the same thing. I was, running in that hamster wheel, the carrot on the stick, and you say, oh, this is just a phase. It's going to get better, or this or that. I do it next week, blah, blah, blah. But it's all bullshit. And you can tell that to yourself the same way you said it. And then people say, like, oh, easier said than done. No, it's not. Trust me, because I went through it and I didn't want to go into that emergency room. I didn't want to get, that big needle in my arm to put on an ECMO. I didn't ask for that. It just happened, and it happened for a reason. And you don't have to do that. But if you ask yourself just for one tiny moment, if you get snatched by aliens and you're gone, I'm not even saying something is happening. You just get abducted by aliens. What is it that will be here on planet
Yeah.
Earth? What is it? Is it everything you think? Hey, people will go like, hey, we're missing him, this and that, other than just, hey, we're missing his money. That's a different story.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah.
We're missing him because he always took care of the internet when it was down. That's not the discussion.
Hmm. I do.
Are they?
You know what I would say to that is, as I've aged now, I'm really old now, but what I would say is the legacy means a lot more than I ever thought it would have when I was younger. So my perspective's changed 100%. I
But
used to
you
think, oh,
forged that. You forged that while you live. You live and lead. You don't do that once you're gone. Then it's over.
mm,
So you live in the moment right now. It's like
right,
all
right.
these people taking the videos of a sunset. They don't look at the sunset. They look at the camera, and then they have it in the camera. And how many times do you really look at those? It's just
100%. I totally get your
bizarre.
point. You're right.
Well,
Yeah.
but you realize that once it's too late,
Right.
but when you go into your car, do you fasten the seatbelt after you crash into a tree, or you do that before you even start the engine? Besides the ding, 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 that's driving you crazy. That little noise that the cars make, just to
Yeah, yeah.
remind you. But, it just doesn't make sense.
I totally get your point. So then how does someone engage you? Now I'm interested. Remember, you're not paying for this. I'm not paying for this. Again, we're trying to add value to the listeners and viewers out there. How does someone engage you if they're interested in, someone who's going to help them with their foundation, by the way, who's shown a lot of success in the past? How does someone engage you?
Well, I mean, as I said, I published a book. I say read this maybe first before maybe you do not align with my philosophy. Maybe you think I'm wrong, and that's totally fine. There are many ways to skin a cat, but at the end of the day, the truth is the truth, and we can turn it around. It's like you look at an egg from the up, from the downside, from the upside, it stays an egg. So you have to do what you have to do. Period. Do it with me. Do it with someone else. Do it alone. Most of the people don't succeed when they do it alone. And, this is why I build what I build. I build it based on data, what I saw, how people succeed. And so I put something together like a program and, a program based after that, and so on and so forth, because I say, look, I'm busy too. I know life, right? But a lot of people say like, why is it happening to me? And I said, no, 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 no. You have to make it happen for you. So you start to manage that process. And the first step is remember that, the string of choices is called life. Every choice we make determines the challenge we face later on. So every
Mhm.
choice you make today, tomorrow, it will determine the challenges we face right after. So totally up to you. I always say that means the only thing is make conscious decisions, make clear choices. So, engaging with me is your choice. So
Mhm.
you can or you cannot, whatever. So I make it very easy for people. I read the book, that's an easy step for anyone to take. And then you can go on our website, register. And I said earlier, we have a dedicated website. It's dietrichinstitute.com, like my last name, Dietrich, and then institute and one word.com / your first name, which is
Kenner, can you repeat that? Spell your name or spell the
D.
website
It's
where they
super
would get
easy.
better. Go ahead.
Dietrich, Dietrich, which is spelled like diet, like a Diet Coke, Diet, and then rich, the opposite of poor. So Dietrich Institute, Institute in one word, dietrichinstitute.com /KENNER.
Perfect. And then they can also order the book from you there, or do they go to Amazon or
Everything is
wherever?
there. Yep, we will put everything on there, and make it very easy for people to connect with us.
And then they can order the book, learn about your program, and see if it's for them,
Yeah.
et cetera. So, as we get ready to close up, what's one example where someone's read your book, been in your program, and they've completely turned their life around as an example? Give me one example, no names, obviously, for confidentiality purposes, but give us one example.
I mean, I have a few that are really great, but I give you one example, which to me is always was so nice. There was a guy who's really the classic guy where you say, "So nice, Howard, super nice guy." The guy you want to go out and have a beer with, right?
Mhm.
And he struggled so much because he was trying to make everything right at home, and that was really not what is needed. He didn't get that. So he went through the program and he had his kid, and his kid was so disengaged. He's like, that kid loves the PlayStation more than he does love me. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. And one day he wrote, was a few weeks later, he wrote an email and he said, "You don't know what happened today." So he was working on a car in his garage, and he said his son never really was interested in that car. And he's like, "I'm building it for him." And does he even have a driver's license? So one day, apparently his son comes into the garage and says, "Hey, Dad, I really want to help you out here. I want to know what you're doing there. What are you working on?" And he said, "You don't understand. That was the greatest moment." They went on a road trip to some racing thing. And I said, "You know what? That's a great transformation, right? You pull him off the." It was like so good for him, and having this father-son moment that I said, you can't replace those. Those are the moments the son will remember when he's getting older, and that to me is just a great example of how to reconnect.
That is what it's all about. I mean, that's talk about legacy. Leaving a family legacy means even more than just leaving a whatever financial legacy, et cetera, et
Yeah,
cetera. That's a
yeah.
good one. Once again, how does someone get a hold of you?
Dietrich Institute, Dietrich Institute.com /Canner.
Now, I can say in closing, anyone who wants to turn their life around, who wants to go from whatever a typical business person, in your case, I guess businessman, to I don't know, who knows, running something like Ashley Madison, becoming a shipping tycoon, you're the guy to learn from. Your training would add value. There's no doubt about this. Once again, thank you very much for being on this, and for anyone
Thank
who's
you.
watching, listening to this. Wow. Go to that website. I think you'll be provided some value. And once again, thank you very much to you. And for anyone who's watching this or listening to this, please go ahead and suggest to continue to listen and watch, because this is a fun channel, fun topic, et cetera, et cetera. Good times, everybody.
Thank you.